it can still be percolating. You can dream about it. You could talk about it after class tonight, and you'll have a little bit more time tomorrow before we actually do the process, okay? And it's thrilling for us to see you all engaging and spinning off each other and discussing, because you'll really help each other's learnings in that process. So I'm going to put the skeleton down on this mat, please. That's cute. That just happened. Huh? So how did you go with your process with your partner this morning of exploring the shoulder girdle and this orientation and going for a ride and rolling head? How was it? Hard? What was hard?
I found it incredibly hard.
Microphone? Sorry, I'm just not sure where it is. Thank you.
I found it very difficult to go along for the ride with the rolling of the head.
Mm-hmm. It is difficult.
And just that.
Great. It is difficult. It's a very sophisticated skill. Moshe, when you see him doing it, he makes it look like nothing. But he had 40, 50 years of experience to make it look like nothing. And you're beginning to learn a skill that will develop in all its elements, but by starting it early, by the end of the training, you might feel able to do it competently and to use it as a tool to assess the quality of someone's organisation, orientation, and other things. This is a first approximation. If you didn't find it difficult, we'd be worried about you. Because, you know, confidence doesn't necessarily equal competence. And beg your pardon? Okay. And could you begin to explore finding your pelvis to connect to it and feel a difference in your partner's experience that way? Fantastic.
Yeah, so I was doing it with Helen, and Helen had quite a range of movement, and I was sitting cross-legged, which is already a bit uncomfortable for me. But
did you?
Yeah, I was slightly bolstered. But what I found is, as soon as she got to a certain point, I was just, you know, my configuration couldn't follow. Mm-hmm. But I'm also aware that if I was just keeping my arm and hand really flat, then I would be able to. Mm-hmm. But then it's just that thing of like, and then I'm aware that the point of contact across her head is really shifting right across to one side.
Yeah.
And is that okay? And this is all a bit weird, and you know. So that's what was difficult. And I wasn't prepared. I wasn't kind of set up to be following. I got confused. I thought, hang on, I'm not meant to be following. I'm meant to be leading. And so it just went into a meltdown.
And the following was more about, some of you may not be so comfortable to begin to lead, to lead you back into, or to guide you into that as an approximation. And to remember that if you're not comfortable guiding, you can take a step back, see what it's like to follow, and how can you begin to negotiate taking some of the weight and finding the organisation in yourself. But yes, it is difficult. I'd say continues to be a challenge in organisation now, 30 years later, 20, I can't remember, 25. I have to think about it. Like when I was with you, I really had to think about connecting my pelvis. But when I do that, and I can, it creates the optimal experience for someone to sense themselves in a new way. sense themselves in a new way. And you may have seen when you're watching FI that Ruth and Jenny and myself and Lisa, we're rolling someone's pelvis. We don't just go, you know, it's approximations. It's change the feet, change the pelvis, change the hands, check the breathing. And it's exactly the same here. So I appreciate you being able to speak that it was difficult for you, and we appreciate that it is difficult.
Thanks.
But aiming high. Okay. Marissa? Yeah?
I had sort of almost the opposite because the person I was working with, when I went to guide her head, I felt like I was doing the smallest movement of my pelvis that I could possibly do, and I was starting with a really small movement, but for her that felt like a huge movement and it felt really uncomfortable. And so she asked if I could go smaller, and I was like, I don't think I can go smaller. So I tried, and I did go a little bit smaller, but it just made me realise that I need to really be able to do that myself, like in ATM and that sort of thing, to be able to sense the smallest little movements, and you know how important that is then for working with someone else.
Thank you.
I'll go with that just quietly. I really liked it because I was moving too much by miles, and when my partner was actually just feeling my shoulders just to get a layout, it was like there was just the slightest bit of pressure, and that went straight through me, and I went, wow. I've got no idea how to do that intentionally, but this person's just feeling that layout of my shoulders, and there goes the movement, and it was just barely perceptible pressure, but it was the awareness, and Ray was paying attention to what he was doing. Wow.
Yeah, Amanda and I sort of had a bit of a discovery. We were a bit resistant, to using this one on the forehead because it's a bit like, the palm's on the right side and it feels really uneven and stuff. But having that hand formation actually allows the wrist to be really free. And once she started doing that, I could so much more easily move my head. So it's like, there can't be any fixed point between between your pelvis and my head. Nothing could be fixed. I had to be free. Yeah, so that was a good one.
That helped too, I think, because then there wasn't so much isolated movement of one body part. It just felt like I was more easily able to glide.
When you formed the ring?
Yes, and then also sitting on this helped a lot, just making me more comfortable. But also when you mentioned, I'll just feel into the ground, that lightened things up too. And just it flowed more easily, like all these different aspects.
Yeah.
Just something small that helped me do the movement on someone was the explorations we did the ATMs before, and locating where the highest point was sitting on my sit bones, and that I then had sort of the availability to rock on that and not be sort of lost in the curve of my spine somewhere in between, sort of be slouched or something. It was sort of much, then I could sort of let that go and focus more on my hand. Great. So it was good, yeah.
Great. One more, Danielle.
I think Ruth noticed and helped me to realise that because I was so intent on having all my attention, I was actually getting lower and lower, like this.
Oh, I remember that.
But I didn't know I was doing it. And another one of those moments of something feeling really good but not understanding it was the relationship between the sternum and the curve in the spine. I was actually moving my hips quite freely, but I was...
Okay, thank you. So now you're going to have another opportunity to practice similar exploration with a different person with 2 additions. So everything is going to be the same. Well, different person, but the same guidelines for the exploration as you did this morning, which is observing them roll their head, seeing what it's like to go for a ride, playing with that. Getting comfortable, I forgot to say. Outlining the shoulder girdle, bony landmarks, go for a ride, before or after, or both, go for a ride. And the next part, see, can you give them a sense of their neck? The space behind the neck, between where their spine touches the floor and where their head is. Now, some people, there's a lot of space, and other people, is not a lot of space. But so wherever you can access, you're going to bring your hands under here, and after you've done the first steps, and just see, can I have you're going to map out what you can of the back of the neck. So my fingers, first of all, I'm down here, and I'm sliding in steps up here, but hanging out in each place to sense the shape, the texture, and to create a support with my fingers for the curve of their spine. So just like we created support for the legs, for the head, we're getting a more neutral position, the muscles of our neck are rarely get that sense of ground, so to speak. So your hands are becoming like the ground. So either side of the spine, you can see where the line of the spine is, but for some people that's unpleasant, so you can check in with your partner. But then coming either side, no right way of holding your hands. It's about how can you find a way for your hands to conform to them so that you bring a sense of support to this area. It's not about lifting up and holding up. It's about meeting them where they are. And saying, okay, I've got all the time in the world. Let's just hang out here. Listen, can you feel the breathing in your fingers? You feel a little change of the texture of the muscles, change it all. And slowly working your way up. It may be that you spend 5 minutes doing that. You may feel like it's a fog. But if you hang out there, something might become a little clearer. So after you've done that, so that's the first part added to the process. The next part is you've explored the bony landmarks. So can you find any handles on the scapula that you could begin to guide their shoulder blade in a forwards direction? Now, forwards could be diagonally, it could be towards the right hip joint of the same side, it could be this. So there's always a direction in our fingers, or it could be that I'm trying to lift straight up, but the shoulder girdle doesn't move in a straight line because of the attachments and connections, moves in arcs. We explored the cardinal directions lying on the side, finding the easiest direction. So it's that idea. How can you use your hand to bring the support behind their shoulder blade and explore what directions are available? And you can go backwards, you can go downwards. So if this forwards direction doesn't feel easy at the moment, try another direction. Okay? No right way to put your hand, but this is one of the easiest options, is to make a little triangular platform on the ground, Depends on how close the person's shoulder is to the ground. But then you can, so your hand's flat, and then you bridge your hand coming up onto your fingers. So that's one way. You can do it this way. And you'll find other ways to do it. Might be just this. See if you can sense a connection between the two shoulders. So it might be your hand somewhere. Did you do that this morning with your partner? Okay, so keeping one hand on one shoulder, exploring the other shoulder. Vice versa. Any questions? Okay. 15 minutes? Seeing as it's familiar, the first part's familiar?
15 each.
15 each.
So do you keep it if the person wants to put something underneath, are they allowed to put or not?
Under the head? Yeah, you can still. But what will make it easier is, this is a good question, so just, Madhava asked, what about something under the head? Now depending on, you're looking for the face to be parallel, but to get access to the back of the neck, all you need to do is arrange it so that it's not all the way down there to make it easier. In actual fact, it makes it easier. Okay.